Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I think we're ready. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Our Safe Space. And today we have another special guest joining us today. We are here with Tito TJ Manotoc. Hi, Tito TJ.
Hello, that's me. I'm Tito TJ.
Hi, Tito TJ. Tito TJ is a journalist, and before meeting Tito TJ here in San Francisco, I knew him as a news act. I would see Tito TJ on TV. I would see a glimpse of him in the mornings before heading to school, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yep.
here in San Francisco, Tito TJ and his family have become a big help to me, especially during the last couple of years here in San Francisco. And I invited him here to kind of share, because he is also a mental health advocate aside from being a journalist. And I want to hear from him about his journey, especially because we will be releasing this in May, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
hmm
So yeah, first things first, Tito TJ, I wanted to ask you, how are you really, Tito?
How are you? I love how you put the really there,
Yeah.
because more often than not, people just say "How are you?" as just
It's
it
like a
just
greeting.
is. It's just a greeting. It's not a sincere, but it's a very sincere way of asking people "How are you?" with adding the really.
Yeah.
But first of all, I appreciate you asking. Thank you. I'm good. Uh, been a, there's been a lot going on that I'm very grateful for. um, in my life and around me, with my family, with Mika going to college soon, with same with Diego as well, and just a lot of different things falling in the right places, but never taking anything for granted and always being grateful for all those moments. And yeah, just taking things one day at a time and enjoying this moment that I'm in. So that's how I am. I'm learning more and more, and I'll explain this a little bit later on. I'm just learning more and more to really focus on gratitude every day. I mean, it's I used to think my goal was happiness, but it's tricky if you're running after happiness. But when you learn the skill of finding which things that are to be grateful in and around your life, then you're in a more stable position. So I'm good. I'm in a really good place, and I'm grateful for it. Thanks for
That's
asking.
nice to know, Tito. That's nice to know. And I'm glad that you're doing great, and I'm so happy for Mika and Diego as well.
hmm
And yeah, and my next question is, in terms of, because the title of the podcast is Our Safe Space, what do you, Tito,
hmm
consider to be your safe space?
Recently I've just discovered recently. I think it's about probably 8 months already that I've found a way to have my me time in the mornings, wherein after I drop the kids to school, because this is primarily driven by fatigue, because it's a long drive. I would drive them 30 minutes through the city from the south of San Francisco, Lake Merced, to the Marina area, which is
Yeah,
the north of San
that's pretty
Francisco,
far.
and 30 minutes with traffic, stop and go on 19th Avenue, this and that. So I thought of having I would call it a halftime break, and I would have coffee first. Initially I was buying coffee, but then I got inspired by this guy I saw on YouTube. He's a Japanese YouTuber who films himself doing solo camping, and his name is Mori One. And there's just one video of his that I got so inspired by. He literally made coffee from scratch.
Oh,
He
wow.
had raw beans that he roasted over a small fire. And then when it was roasted, he had a hand grinder. He ground. What's the past tense of grind? He grinded the beans, and then he put them into a pour over setup where he had filter paper, and he had a origami shaped something to hold up the filter paper over his cup of coffee. He heated his water on a pot with a little same fire that he made to roast his beans, and then he poured it over, and then he started slowly sipping, enjoying his pour. I'm like, damn, that's cool. So actually, I wanted to emulate as much as I could, but so my current setup is that I grind my beans at home, But then I bring everything else. I was able to buy a. It's called the Porigami. It's made by Mir. If you know the brand MIR,
Mm,
Mir. They're
yes.
known for their flasks primarily. So they have this origami shaped holder that holds up a paper filter. It forms a triangle like this, but
Yeah.
it folds up like this, like three origami pieces. So you put that together, put it over your coffee mug, which I bring with me every day, and this actually bring it here. I go everywhere
Oh,
with
it's
it.
there.
It's an
It's
electric
with you
mug. It's
right
called
now.
Ember. It's called Ember. It's an electric mug because it keeps your coffee warm at a specific temperature for about an hour if you want to. But because I'm a slow sipper, so I do the pour over. I bring hot water in a thermos like this one, but not this one. I have another one at home that has a better pouring system. So I do that. So I find myself a spot, whether it's in Alta Plaza Park or down at the marina looking the Golden Gate Bridge. I have a few spaces that I choose where to stop and just do my pour over coffee. I have a camping chair that I bring with me, like a low
Oh, so
seated chair,
nice.
and then I have a picnic blanket. So that's my morning ritual. It's and I find it very meditative. It is my safe space. It's my space, and I love how I'm able to do it and just and I take my phone away. You know, I do check my messages a bit, and then I'm like, okay, later na lang. If there's nothing urgent, I put it aside. No
Yeah,
distractions. It's just me, my coffee routine, and nature. Whether I'm facing the beach
that's
or I'm in the middle of a
great.
park or wherever. And for me, it's such a meditative process of the 5 or so minutes making the coffee and then another 10-15 minutes me slowly consuming the coffee, just sipping it slowly, being mindful of where I am enjoying it. And I've found it to be so powerful that no matter what crap happens for the rest of your day, because you can't control everything that will happen, whether good or bad, I've won the day because I started
Yeah,
it right. And I'm anchored on that safe space that I created to start my day. And
that's so
it's been such a blessing to discover that I've always loved nature. I knew that about myself. I didn't realize that it could be so empowering to me. To amidst living in
true.
such a busy city like San Francisco as it is, you're
Yeah,
able to find pockets of spots like that to really be with yourself, your coffee, the birds, the trees, whatever, and then just enjoy it. And just when you go throughout the day, things can be stressful. I close my eyes and remember I started it right. I had a great cup of coffee this morning, and even at night when it's still rough, I'll tell myself I'm gonna have another one tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to the
yeah,
next one. I'm looking forward to the morning. So in
yeah.
fact, Sunday nights are not a dread for me. I don't dread Monday mornings. I'm excited for Monday mornings
Oh,
because
wow.
I know after I drop off the kids, I'm gonna have my first, weekday Monday
Cup of
morning coffee
coffee.
wherever
That's
I may
great,
be. So
Tito.
yeah, so that's my safe space, and that's where I'm able to
That's
detach, detox, declutter my mind. Um, get away from social media, get away from my phone, and just be with myself and coffee and nature.
That's so great, Tito. That's so great. It's taking time. That's important. Taking at least, and we talked about this when I was talking to Tito Jim, taking at least 5 minutes out of your
Hmm.
day for yourself.
Yeah.
Not even, it can be more than 5 minutes,
Oh
but
yeah.
doing something for yourself every day, even if it's
Hmm.
something small, is very
Yeah.
important. It's
Super.
very important. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, Tito, about your mental health journey
Hmm.
because we're Filipinos, we're from the Philippines, and in the Philippines there is still a stigma around
Hmm.
mental health,
Yep.
having anxiety and having depression, and I was wondering what the journey was like for you when in terms of discovering that.
Discovering that there
The,
was a stigma.
there's the stigma and
Hmm.
how you dealt with your own mental health struggles.
Well, first and foremost, I was very fortunate to be free of any major mental health issues since I finished college. Actually, it's been 20 plus
Yeah.
years. You'll have your ups and downs, but I haven't had anything major since then. Which I graphically showed in my video. I really tried to
Yeah.
reenact it. So I'm sure we'll talk about it later on. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, I wasn't even fully aware I never gave it a lot of thought that there was this stigma about mental health in the Philippines, and how little it was talked about. And if it was talked about, it was just talked about at a certain way, wherein more often than not, it comes into conversations in people's lives when somebody dies of suicide. And it came to a point where I realized, is this it? Is this the only time then when we talk about mental health, when it's just sensationalized, when it's like, it's chismes, or it's society rumors, like, oh, did you hear what happened to so and so? Oh my God, he killed himself. But the parents are not talking about the cause of death. Da, da, da. It's a very common thing. And you know, I was, there were a lot of serendipitous moments that happened throughout my life and career that led me to that point. One of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one, was I was on an evening newscast. I think it was 2012. It's been 10 years already, and it was called The Rundown. And Ces Drilon, who's another veteran news anchor in the Philippines, she was the main anchor. I was the segment host, and how I like to call myself, I was the Chuwari Wari Wap. That's a Philippine colloquial nickname for backup singer or backup dancer. But anyway, so the way the show was structured was, it was a live show at 9 o'clock, and if she's absent or out, they would always get a replacement anchor to come in and take her space. But that's only if she's able to give us a couple of days or a day at a time. In the worst case scenario, she can't make it back in the studio in time, because sometimes she's out doing field reports, whatever. In worst case scenarios, I have to fit in last minute. And there's this one night that was the case, that she was stuck in traffic in EDSA, and then my producer said it was like 8:45. They're like, okay, no choice, you're gonna have to anchor the whole show. I'm like, okay. So who's the guest? Because the form of the show was, it was news a bit, and then a heavy chunk of it in the middle was an interview with
Mhm.
a newsmaker or somebody about, feature about something or a topic. And that evening, I'm like, so, okay, who's the guest? So I can kind of prepare. And the guest was Jeannie Goldburn. And they were like, she's going to talk about suicide prevention and mental health, because she was then launching her foundation called the Natasha Goldburn Foundation, which at the time, and I think until now, is one of the only suicide prevention focused mental health foundations back then. And it was named such because of her daughter, who she lost to suicide many years ago. So, and I'm like, okay. And then I actually knew her before I met her, because she was a friend of my mom. So I was very comfortable with her, and I was comfortable with the topic. My producers had no idea why, but I struggled with mental health, and I overcame the majority of it. So I knew how to go about this interview, and I'm like, okay, I got this, no problem. So here comes Tita Jeannie, and we're starting to do the interview on air, live on ANC, our news channel. And then 5 minutes into the interview, it became a conversation more than an interview, because I was spewing stuff out about myself and my life and my experiences, and everybody watching were like, what's going on? Is he just really saying this about himself, or like on national TV, which would be considered taboo? People don't usually
Yeah.
come out about their mental health struggles, right?
Yes.
So it was just a beautiful conversation back and forth, and we got really good feedback afterwards about it. And in fact, this is something Tita Jeannie never told me until years later. That on the way home in the car, she said she burst into tears, because she was just so amazed how well that whole interview went. Because she told me that prior to coming onto the show, she was nervous that it was not going to be Cess, and it was me, who was a junior anchor, that she's like, oh, this might get screwed up, whatever. But it turned out to be all the better. And so after that, she invited me to give a talk, my first ever talk about my experience in a school in Cavite, in the La Salle das Marinas. Shared my, a bit of my story, my experience there. And afterwards, a bunch of kids went up to me and were so thankful that I shared my story. And they were saying, like, it was so empowering for them to just hear my story, to see somebody up there, he's okay. And that's when it first dawned on me, like, wow, I never realized how powerful a story can be. So I actually told Tita Jeannie at the time, Tita Jeannie, I think I can write a book about this. I think I want to write a book about my experiences, and I want to donate the proceeds of the book to you and your foundation. She said, "Oh, that's lovely. That's great." And like, so that became a bucket list project that was shoved to my back pocket for many years until the video came about, which I know you want to ask about that. So I'll let you prime
Yeah.
that up later. So that's how, just to answer your question, that's how I started to understand that it's difficult to talk about mental health in the Philippines. There's this taboo about it. I brought it out in the open in TV, to the surprise of many people, and that's what got the ball rolling for me. It started all that with that one interview that one night.
So that's because I was going to ask next about when was the time you decided, okay, I want people to hear, or I want to tell people my story.
Yeah.
Was it
So
that interview that
yeah, it
started
was that interview, and it was the interview and the talk in that
and the
school where, and I
oh,
literally saw impact amongst some of the students who went up to me and thanked me just for sharing my story. And so I was going to turn 40 in 2017, and I told Rio, my wife, and myself, I'm like, you know what? I think it's about time to tell the story and let this be my 40th birthday gift to the universe, to share my story. And from that time, so those 4 or 5 years between the time of the interview with Jeannie Goldberg and then that time I decided to do it, that span, people, and my producers and editors in ABCB News knew me already as, okay, here's the guy who had mental health issues. He knows this topic very well. I was one always assigned, or almost always assigned, to do a news story when a known personality or a celebrity commits suicide. And it was frustrating for me at one point already. And I was thinking, as I said a little bit earlier, is this the only time we talk about it when someone commits suicide? I mean, is this the only time mental health is discussed, right? I mean, if you really think about it, there's about 95, 96, 97% of us who are alive and well, who thrive. There's a struggle, but we're okay. There's only a small percentage of us who, unfortunately, don't get the support, don't get the help. They're on the last, you know, edge of their life, and they give up, right? And something happens. But majority of the focus is on that. So I was thinking, what if we start focusing on those who are alive and well, and that's where we can start sharing experiences, sharing stories about each other's lives, and hopefully maybe inspire each other, right? To learn from each other. So that's why I decided it's basically called changing the narrative, if you can. And people had said it was a very gutsy move for me to do, and with the way we did it. So I wanted, initially I thought it was going to be a book, and then one day, at home I was watching YouTube, and there was a time I was getting heavy into YouTube because I had a favorite YouTuber I was watching. His name is Casey Neistat, and he's a really good filmmaker and YouTuber. And I looked around and I saw my kids at home, Mika and Inigo. At the time, they were 12 and 7 respectively, and they were just watching their tablets. And I was kidding to them, why don't you guys watch TV? I mean, I pay for cable TV. No one's watching cable TV. There's Disney Channel, there's HBO. No one's watching TV. It's
yes.
like, but Dad, we can't choose what we watch. It's so they prefer YouTube. Like, I mean, it really hit me hard. But wait a second. So if I'm gonna tell this story, I think I'll reach more people and more younger people if I make it a video on the internet, on YouTube.
Mhm.
So that was the decision. So I reached out to a friend who was a producer of a bunch of really good TV shows, and we discussed the concept. And I initially wanted to do literally just like this, like a YouTube confessional, just me, my face, and the camera. That was my initial idea. Which part of it is, if that video is part of it is me looking in the camera, telling my story. But it was my friend Jake De Guzman who really encouraged me. That's happening. Yeah, let's add more elements to it. Let's make it more visual. Let's put reenactments. I'm like, you mean get actors to do it? Yep, like, yeah. So that was the decision. We had, a lot of different pieces to add to the visuals to take the audience on a journey of what I went through so they can get on that emotional ride till the very end where I get emotional, which was not intended, but it just happened, that I'm expressing my hope, wish for the viewer on the other side of the screen, that I hope I give them hope just by being alive. Because that's what I had in the 1990s. In 1992, when I first had my episode of insomnia and anxiety, I was so blessed to meet somebody who was one of my mentors. His name is Max Ricketts. And I saw him alive, and I was told he went through worse than me. He was manic depressive. And for like 20 years, he was just a vegetable, just being bombarded with drugs. And eventually, he learned to live a healthier life and live balanced life and be well. He was giving back to society. And so Tito Max was one of my idols. And I'm like, you know what? If Max could do that to me back then in 1992 on a one-to-one basis, maybe I could be what Max to me to strangers on the internet. just give them hope by just seeing him. Like, oh my God, I know the guy, the journalist, the TV guy. He's okay, but he went through that. Really? So it hopefully it'll give them hope. And so that's what happened. When we released the video, in eventually I think it was 20 took us a year or so to produce it. And I think it's 2019. No, sorry, 2018 January, end of January we released it. We put it on the internet, and immediately it went bananas viral. Picked up by everybody. I was interviewed by pretty much all the publications, and everybody but our rival station interviewed me, but it was just the talk of the town pretty much, and everyone's like, oh my God, the guy from ANC, the TV guy, and he put out this tell all video about it, and like, and but the feedback was phenomenal, because looking at the comment section, if you look at the comment section of the video on YouTube and on Facebook, it's incredible to see how people would say that just by watching the video, it has helped them so much. Just by watching the video, it has changed their perspective on their condition. Just by watching the video, it took a burden off their shoulders. And some even said just by watching the video, they were able to explain to their parents what they were going through. Because I didn't realize that it was a struggle for some kids, a lot of kids, to explain to their parents what is going on
Yes.
in their heads, because it's something that's invisible. It's not like, Mom, I have an owie, I have a wound in my shoulder or my arm, look at it.
Yeah.
You can't visibly show it. And there are a lot of old school, old generation parents in the Philippines who still are in denial that mental health is an issue. That mental health struggles is a thing, right? So I saw so many comments and people messaging me that I use your video to tell my parents. I use your video to talk to my siblings, whatever. Like, it was just mind blowing to see the kind of impact it had. And so that I was just thankful that, as simple as it was, I just wanted to be able to pay it forward what Max did to me. That he gave me hope and inspiration that I could see myself living normal and alive like him, and that's what I did. So it it took me a while. It took me like 25 years to figure out that was my purpose with what I went through back then, and I'm grateful I was able to do it. And to this day, I think if I count the views, it was like almost 500,000 views in total to the people that it's reached. And I was invited to give talks in schools and corporations to share more of my story. And I'm so thankful that I was able to. And really, even if I just impact one life, if I just save one life, it'll make it all worth it. And I'm just thankful and grateful that it's done much more than that.
It has, Tita. And I also really, if you don't know the video that we're talking about, it was released in 2018. It's
Mm-hmm.
titled You Will Be All Right. And I love the title because that in itself is comforting
Mm-hmm.
to hear someone say, you're going to be okay.
It was funny because we struggled to find the title between me
Really
and my
true.
producer Jake. We're like, what's the title gonna be? What's the title gonna be? And then towards the end of that, the narration where he and another producer were trying to interview me just to try to get more of the story. I ended up saying it in the end, right? Like, just hang on, don't lose hope, find that support system, reach out for help, and you will be all right. I just said it, not even thinking about it. And Jake was like, "That's it. That's the title of the video. You'll be." I'm like, "Really? Okay, I trust you." So okay, so we stuck. We stuck with that, and that was it. You'll be all right.
I love it, Tito. I love it. And, when it comes to tools to that have helped you, I was wondering, what are tools that have helped you through that journey, and what are
Hmm.
tools that you think may help others when creating a safe space,
Hmm.
for themselves when they are dealing with all of these mental health
Yeah.
struggles?
Well, the first thing that I stumbled on, I discovered, I think on my own as well. I was fortunate to figure this out with the help of Max, as he planted the seed in me in 1992. But then I think it came full circle. I figured this out in 95. Was the power of acceptance. And that first night pa lang, I met Tito Max, and it was in Santuario de San Antonio, for those who are in the Philippines who are familiar with the church. And there's like a
Yeah.
meeting room there, and he would have like twice a week counseling to anybody who wanted any kind of life counseling, but more specifically for him for mental health issues, right? So again, when I first sat down, I saw him, like, oh my God, he's alive. Just seeing him, he gave me hope already. Secondly, he taught me the most important tool that started off was the power of affirmations. And he said, I want you to write this down. I accept myself. and then write it down on a piece of paper 10 times. I accept myself. I accept myself. And then tell it to yourself in the mirror in your mind. I accept myself. And then say it to yourself in the mirror 10 times out loud. I accept myself. And do that 3 times a day. Make this your mental vitamin. Um, that was my first ever encounter with this thing called affirmations. And what affirmations is, for those who might be hearing this for the first time, it's really powerful, positive statements that you want to get deep into your subconscious. That until it gets dug into your subconscious, that's when it becomes your conscious reality. And it took a while for me to figure it out, but then I realized the power of what he was planting in me at that time. That when you first experience your first really difficult mental health challenge or experience, more often than not, you're looking like this. You're pointing outwards to blame everybody and anybody. Not to say you have to blame yourself, but it's just instinctive. I think that you're blaming my parents' fault, my school's fault, my boyfriend's fault, my girlfriend's fault, whatever. There's just so much external blame. But what you don't realize is that a lot of that stuff are things that are outside of your sphere that you don't have control over. These are other human beings who live their lives, do their things, say their things that you can't really control. So it came to a point that you have to understand that, okay, I'll just control what's in this sphere, what I have. I mean, I can still do what I can to try to make an impact in other people's lives, make an impact in relationships, but I won't allow myself to be stressed. There's a difference of I'm trying to be a nicer person, I'm trying to have a better relationship, but I disallowed stress to go beyond that level. And it was a mindset shift that I had to make sure that I won't allow stress to go beyond that, and I'll only stress about things that I have full control, which is like about me, like maybe my physical activities, my diet, whatever, my physical health, things like that. So there's just things that you are full control of. The analogy I would always give people about trying to understand, acceptance is, for example, you're driving a car, you have a flat tire, and you're driving, and then you get a flat tire. You can't continue on your journey and deny that the flat is there and think that you can operate and think that you can operate optimally. At one point, it's even going to tear your whole car apart, and you'll
Yes.
you'll crash, right?
Yeah.
It'll take an effort to step out of the car, literally, see it from a different perspective, point out what's an issue at that moment. Oh, it's a flat tire. Damn, it's gonna be hard to fix. But you know what? I'll fix it. I accept this, and it's pointless to blame who caused it. It's pointless to say, "Oh my goodness, my brother drove it and he ran over a nail," or "Oh my goodness, this." It's pointless to blame anybody for that. What's important now is you understand and accept that there's a challenge, and you will take it on head on, and you will do what you need to do to fix it. So you'll fix that spare tire, you get the other tire, the spare, whatever, and it's never going to be the same again. It's it's never going to go back to normal, but it's going to be okay. Your four wheels will be functioning. You'll be able to function. You'll be able to get there, get to your destination. So that's the analogy I love to give about the power of acceptance when there's an issue that is really taking a toll on your mental health. That if you stay in the moment and you stay present, you don't try to blame the past, don't try to blame third party people and say, you know what, I'll do what I can to do what I have to do about this thing. It's going to take some time, it's going to take a lot of effort, but let me do this. So that is the analogy I give about acceptance. And, through the years, I've kept at on that. I've talked about it, and just about a year and a half ago, I stumbled upon a book called Radical Acceptance. Apparently, this is a massive thing even in the world of Buddhism, that it's for thousands and thousands of years ago, this has been a human superpower. For those who have that power to harness radical acceptance, they live with such peace and gratitude, and eventually, because of that, with joy and happiness, that it begins with that foundation of acceptance. That you know what you can control, you know what you can't control. And when you draw the line, yeah, that's the universe. Yeah, let it be. I'll keep to myself, and I'll react to it. I'll live with it and let things flow. right? But I'll
Yes.
only stress out about the things I can control. Back then in college, when I first figured it out, I'm like, okay, grades, right? Grades would be the thing that you stress yourself the most out of. I'm like, I told myself I will no longer stress myself out over a certain grade. I will just go to school to learn and enjoy. And whatever happens, happens. If I get a good grade out of the test, so be it. If I don't get a good grade, so be it. But I know I learned. I know I participated in the class. I didn't, you know, you know, torture myself by trying to memorize something over and over again just to get a certain grade. That wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. So, and I'm grateful that I figured that out because it eventually taught me how to be a lifelong learner, which I continue to learn things along the way. It's not about impressing another human being to put a number on a piece of paper and say, this is you, you're 95, or this is you, you're a B. I mean, it doesn't define you. It should never define you.
Yes.
And so that's where it began. That's when I realized, oh, this is so cool. If I learn to have this power of acceptance and knowing what's my boundaries, I'll be a much healthier, much saner, much happier human being. And lo and behold, that's what's carried me to where I am today.
Yeah, I think that being, accepting and self awareness is
Hmm.
very, very important. It's like, okay, this is happening. There are things I can't control, but what can I do in my power now?
Yeah.
And that's something that I have tried to kind of learn as well, Tito.
Hmm.
And that's a very, very important tool in helping me also be
Hmm.
sane, because there are a lot of things we can't control. But
Yeah.
what can we do, with what we have in front of us and what we can control? And another thing I wanted to ask you is, you're a dad to Mika and Inigo, and yeah, you're a parent, and I wanted to ask you, as a parent, how can parents help their children when it comes to their mental health, whether it be anxiety or depression, and creating that safe space for their kids?
Hmm.
What can parents do to support their children on that
I
journey?
think it begins with the mindset that you want to invest in their mental health. And when you say the words mental health, by the way, it's not always meaning mental health is a bad thing or an issue. Mental health is your health, like physical health.
Yes.
So, same with what most parents do for their child's physical health. They'll feed them milk, you know, water, food, vitamins, whatever, because
Yes.
they're investing in their physical health, right? And proper sleep and all that. But so it begins with mindset and to each his own, right? I mean, I don't think there's only one way for every parent. So depending on their parenting styles, depending on their hobbies and their likes, there are many ways that they can figure out those little, deposits. Let's put it that way, deposits in their love bank to invest in their child's mental health. And one of the things as well that comes along with that is investing in a strong relationship, in an open relationship wherein communication is steady and open and secure at a very young age, as young as possible, right? And as well, when they get to a certain age, and again, like, you can't define this really, you start talking about mental health, about that mental health is real, right? So they understand that this is a real thing, that they need to invest in themselves, something they need to be watching out for. The concept of stress, the concept of trauma, the concept of stressful relationships, all that, and that it's real, it's reality. We're not gonna hide this under the rug that it's taboo, so similar to society as a whole, the more it's discussed, more it's talked about, the more it becomes normalized and there's less stigma and it's okay to talk about it. And therefore, if things do come out and challenges do happen, it can be brought about easier and discussed easier that way. So I think those are the most important things about, you know, cultivating that culture in a family. Um, it takes time, it takes an effort, takes consistency. But, it's also understanding that you as a family unit, you all continue to learn and to evolve together. It's never perfect. It'll never be perfect. So it's just that mindset of growing together, even for adults, and even though we're parents already, we can't say, okay, I've grown up, I'm done learning. That's ridiculous. you will continue to learn things in life, continue to learn life skills and parenting skills or whatever it is, and it will all contribute to making you a better human being. And when you realize you're able to make yourself better, it contributes to people around you, that you make them better, you have better relationships with them as well. So that I think that's one of the more important things for parents to think about. Just begin with that mindset of investing in the mental health of their kids and investing in a good relationship to start out.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And also, not, yeah, especially in, I guess, Filipino culture, mental health, as I said
Mm-hmm.
earlier, is there really is a stigma. And I think nowadays it's more, it's become more of a conversation. And I'm very glad that it has become better in terms of people openly talking about it. And what do
Mm-hmm.
you think of that, from the time you started talking about it to now, how much it has changed in terms of the stigma in regards to mental health,
Oh my
Tito?
goodness, so much has happened since in the last 4 years. It was so funny that year 2018, so many things happened. Shortly after I came out with my video, one of the biggest things that came out in terms of revelations was Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps came out to the world and talked about how he had severely struggled with his mental health, that he wanted to commit suicide so many times. And it was a shock to his fans all over the world, and not even just his fans, but people who were aware of him as an Olympic champion, one of the, if not the most be-medaled Olympic champion, if not mistaken. And yet, why are you unhappy? Why are you struggling? You got everything you wanted, right? You got all the success you wanted. Why do you want to give up? Why do you want to stop? So, and I think him coming out really opened the floodgates of a lot of people coming out all over the world, a lot of celebrities in the US and whatnot. Even in the Philippines, there were other celebrities that eventually came out and very open about their mental health as well. And then the same year, if I'm mistaken, the Philippines passed the mental health law finally after years of battle and struggle. And so parang everything snowballed. There was so much conversation mental health. It was great to see and hear all that happening. And
Yes.
I think I just came in at the right time, to be part of the conversation. Up to now, it's something that is, the discussion is growing more and more and more. People are more open to talk about it on social media. There are schools that are having events that talk about it now. I know of schools that have mental health awareness week and things like that. And it's just great to see how schools and companies are investing in open conversations about mental health, um, because again, the more you talk about it, the more people are encouraged to be open about their struggles, and it's just a good investment to make in the mental health and mental wellness of your community and society as a whole.
Yeah, that's great, Tito. I guess, before we end the episode, Tito, do you have any last words that you want to say to the audience?
Well, I can summarize it in this. I mean, in the last few talks I've given, I've come to this um, acronym or nickname of how I've come to find tools and a battle plan to have good mental health. And this is apt for me as a sportscaster. I call it GAME, GAME. G, as I mentioned a bit earlier, is about gratitude. Um, I first encountered the concept of gratitude as a practice, I think about 4 years ago. I heard it in a podcast from Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about, I think it was specifically Tony Robbins' morning routine. And he said his morning routine is he gets up, takes his ice bath, which is very difficult to do. He jumps in a tub of ice, okay, and then he'll meditate a bit, and then he'll do his push-ups, and then he pulls out a notebook where he'll write down his what 3 things he's grateful for. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that's what they call the gratitude practice, where you literally have a physical effort to think and write down 3 things you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be spectacular things; it could be the most mundane things. And I'll never forget the the first time I tried it the next morning, and what I wrote down in my notebook was that I said, I'm grateful to wake up beside my family and the opportunity to love them and hug them. I'm grateful for the career I am in, that I'm able to be in broadcasting to help inspire and inform people. And the third one is, I'm grateful for the amazing cup of coffee I'm about to have from my Cordillera beans. I kid you not. So it's, medyo big and then some mundane. But like, so I wrote it down and I read them back to myself. I'm like, wow, really? There was that jolt of joy just to see and read yourself what you're grateful for. And I was like, really? And then, when I learned more about it, and when you do your research about gratitude and gratefulness as a mindset, is that there have been so many studies about it now, that people who do regular practices of gratitude journal, they're proving to be very productive people, much more happier in their lives, and so on and so forth. So the scientific data is there already. So gratitude as a skill, as a mindset, as a practice is one thing to really, really invest in, and it's just amazing. Second is A, so gain A, which I talked a lot about already. Acceptance. It's not it's my superpower. I like to say it's something I've developed and something that I've wanted to make a foundation in my life and in my mindset. So acceptance. M is mindfulness and meditation. I like to use both to represent M, because I don't want to freak people out if I just say meditation. Some people get freaked out. Ooh, meditation, so woo, so hippie. But maybe we can get them into that same space by saying mindfulness first. You can do mindful activities. And there's a whole range of things you can do to do mindfulness. Like even what I do in the morning, making the coffee, drinking the coffee nature. That's very mindful already. There are a lot of mindfulness practices you can do from drawing and coloring and those adult coloring books. Those are very mindful
Yes.
activities as well, things like that. And if you really want to get into it, there are many apps out there that will help you try to start meditating. They're for free. There are videos on YouTube as well that do a lot of guided meditations. Because when I first tried meditation as a 14-year-old with my mom, she brought me to a Zen Buddhist meditation group. I'm like, oh my God, here I am, 14 years old, and I'm sitting with all these adults, and they're sitting down with their knees crossed and everything, and they're sitting in silence for an hour. I'm like, I can't do this. But, through the years, lo and behold, there's so many forums, so many techniques that you can just find what resonates with you, find you think what works with you. And for me, a good 10-minute guided meditation is really so powerful. I love it. There are times I use the Calm app. There are times I use the Genius app of Jay Shetty, who is a guy I really look up to in terms of mental health and wellness altogether. So yeah, so for me, mindfulness and meditation as something to invest in regularly. If you can do it daily, is fantastic to invest in mental health. And then the last one, E, represents evolve. Um, Again, like I've sprinkled throughout this conversation about how even as an adult, you have to keep an open mind that you want to be a lifelong learner. And when you're a lifelong learner, no matter how successful you may be in life, no matter how successful you may see yourself as, first of all, it depends how you gauge success. Some people gauge success purely on financial basis. If somebody asks me nowadays, you know, how will you say you're successful? I wouldn't even base it on anything material. I'll say I'm successful when I see my kids that I've raised them well, happy and healthy. That for me is success. That's it. So E is to evolve and just to constantly have that mindset that we're never perfect. We will never be perfect, and just be humble enough that you know that you can always look for things out there that will help inspire you to make you a better person, to make you a better human being, to make you a better partner, make you a better, you know, husband, wife, father, mother, brother, sister. Just that open mindset of I'm never gonna be content with who I am today as a human being, and I want to be better tomorrow. And imagine if we just focus on being 1% better of ourselves every day, the next day. And imagine if we actually start our days with that, and you look back after a year and you're like, okay, it's been a year, and every day I told myself I'm gonna be 1% better today than yesterday. What can I do to be better? You'll see your growth. It's phenomenal. And I'll never forget this lesson I learned from Jay Shetty in one of his podcasts when he talked about New Year's resolutions. And he says the problem with New Year's resolutions is people have goals, and which is great. You know, you set goals that you want to achieve in your life, whether it's I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to earn this much. But more often than not, you know, based on surveys and studies, the vast majority of people fail to hit those goals. And he was trying to say that's okay, because what you have to look at is your effort. And when you look back at that year that you went through it, you look at the growth that you had and appreciate that and be thankful for that and be grateful for that growth. So it's more of having that growth mindset. It's more of having a growth setting. That when you start out, it's you still have a goal, but be humble enough to accept that it's very difficult to attain that goal. But what you want to focus on is your constant growth, your daily growth, your weekly growth,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever skill in your life it may be, whether it's being more grateful about things in your life, whether it's which is better having a better communications with a parent or whatever it is, constantly focusing on those things that you know that you can have incremental growth with, and then lo and behold, months down the line, you look back like, wow, I've really grown. I've really grown to be a better person. That's awesome. And then you start to build that momentum, and then you start to build that that skill and that muscle of just wanting to constantly evolving yourself to a better version of yourself, day in, day out, the next day, the next day. So, and if we have more human beings in this planet who have that mindset that they just want to be better humans for others, be kinder, be more patient, be gentler, be more generous, and all that, and be more loving. Wow, I think that would be heaven and earth, right?
Yeah,
That's
it
that's the
would
that's the
be.
dream. Yeah.
It would be. Well,
So
thank you so
game,
much,
gratitude,
Tito. Gotta be
acceptance,
game.
mindfulness, evolve. You got to be game.
Yeah, gotta be game, Tito.
That's
Thank you
it.
so much, Tito,
You're
for
very welcome.
talking to me about your mental health and your journey and taking us along with you. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, feel free to follow us on Spotify. It's our Safe Space podcast, same name on YouTube.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you want to, feel free to comment on this video if you have any suggestions for any topics that you would like me to cover in the next episodes. Or you can follow us on Instagram at oursafespace.ph. Message me on there privately if you would like. And yeah, thank you so much again, Tito TJ, for taking the
You're
time out of your
welcome.
day. Thank you,
You're
Tito. I'll see
welcome.
you when you're
I
back here
enjoyed
in
this.
San
Yes,
Francisco.
we will. We will.
Yes, yes.
We gotta have a despedida for Mika and Diego before they off down
Yes.
south.
Yeah,
We
Tita, but
will for
thank you so
sure.
much.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much. I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation today with Tito TJ about mental health. And just remember, you'll be all right and you gotta be game.
You'll be all right. Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so
That's
much
it.
for
Thanks,
thank
Bea.
you, Tito. And thank you so much for listening. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.